Okay, hello everyone and hello Mr. Widi. Today we, as the second group, will present to you about Unit 18 and Unit 19. Unit 18, Properties of Predicates, will be delivered by Bu Muriyah, and then Unit 19, Derivations, will be delivered by me, Retrianti Prasetya, and Alfat Prastowo. So now, let's go to the first presentation that is going to be delivered by Bu Muriyah. Bu Muriyah, time is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Pak Widi and all of my mates. Tia, thank you for opening the presentation today, and thank you for the time that it was given to me. Here, I would like to share about properties of predicates, and we took the reference from Unit 18, Semantics, the course book, by James R. Harford, Brandon Heasley, and Michael B. Smith. Now we come to the definition. Predicates seem to denote or express properties, and properties are whatever are the meanings of predicates. It means that properties and predicates influence each other. Predicates are commonly described as one place, two place, three place, etc. Yet according to number of arguments they take, properties of predicates are part of semantic subject that explain about the sense of predicates. Well, the sense properties of predicates has three major categories, namely symmetry, reflexivity, and transitivity, where each of them has two models or two types. For example, symmetry has been divided into symmetric and asymmetric, and then reflexivity is divided into reflexive and irreflexive, and transitivity is divided into transitive and intransitive. And now, what is asymmetric? Symmetric is when given a two-place predicate P, if for any pair of referring expression x and y, the sentence xpy entails the sentence ypx, then P is symmetric. Example, Tanzania is different from Kenya. Kenya is different from Tanzania. So, different is a symmetric predicate. Example number 2. Mary is married to Hans. Entail, Hans is married to Mary. The word married to is a symmetric predicate. Another example is same. Same is a symmetric predicate, since for any x and y, x is the same as y entails y is the same as x. In other words, if x is the same as y, then y must be the same as x. Now we come to the asymmetric. When given to place predicate P, if the sentence x, p, y is a contradictory of ypx, then P is an asymmetric predicate. Example, John is taller than Bill is a contradictory of Bill is taller than John. Taller than is an asymmetric predicate. John is under the table is a contradictory of the table is under John. Under is a symmetric predicate. Now we come to reflexivity. Reflexivity is divided into reflexive and irreflexive. Reflexive when given a two-place predicate P, if for any single referring expression x, or for any pair of referring expressions x and y which have the same referent, for example, John and himself, the sentence xpx or the sentence xpy is analytic. Then P is a reflexive predicate. Example, I am as old as myself. I am as old as myself is analytic. So the predicate be as old as is reflexive. Second example, John's door key is identical to itself. So identical to is reflexive. Now we come to irreflexive. When given a two-place predicate P, if for any single referring expression X, or for any pair of referring expressions X and Y which have the same referent, example John and himself, the sentence XPX or the sentence XPY is a contradiction. Then P is an irreflexive predicate. Example, John is taller than Bill is a contradictory of Bill is taller than John. The predicate is taller than is irreflexive because any sentence X is taller than Y, where X and Y have the same referent, is bound to be a contradiction. The second example, Mary is different from herself, is a contradiction, so the predicate different from is irreflexive. Transitivity. Transitivity divided into transitive and intransitive. Transitive when given a two-place predicate P, if for any trio or referring expression X, Y, and Z, the compound sentence X, P, Y, and Y, P, Z entails the sentence X, P, Z, then P is transitive. The example. The first, the king is in his counting house, and his counting house is in his castle. Entails, the king is in his castle. So the predicate in the sentence is transitive. Example number 2, Socrates was wiser than Plato, and Plato was wiser than Aristotle. Socrates was wiser than Aristotle. So wiser than is transitive. Now we discuss about intransitive. Intransitive when given a two-place predicate P, if for any trio of referring expression X, Y, and Z, the compound sentence X, P, Y, and Y, P, Z is the contradictory of X, P, Z, then P is intransitive. Example, John is the father of Bill and Bill is the father of Sue is incompatible with John is the father of Sue. So, father of is intransitive. It's also another word such as grandchild of and 2 inches taller than. This is the example of intransitive predicate. And here is the table about the relationship between the predicates. There are 3 columns to distinguish between definition involves 1 sentence, 2 sentences, and definition involves 3 sentences. When we definition involves a necessary truth and it relates to definition involves 1 sentence, so we can call it as reflexive. But for definition involves a 2 sentence, we can say this is a symmetric. But when it relates to definition involves 3 sentences, it is transitive. And for the definition involves a necessary falsehood, if it relates to definition involves 1 sentence, it called irreflexive. And if it relates to definition involves 2 sentences, it calls asymmetric. And if it relates to definition involves 3 sentences, it calls intransitive. Now we come to the equivalence relation. Definition: any relation expressed by a predicate that is reflexive, symmetric, and transitive is called an equivalence relation. Example, Sam S expresses an equivalence relation. Different from does not express an equivalence relation. Another example, The same 8s expresses an equivalence relation. Identical to expresses an equivalence relation. Both of them are the example of one of the reflexive or symmetric or transitives predicate. But similar to does not express an equivalent relation. Similar to is not transitive. And also married to. Married to does not express an equivalence relations. So from the explanation above, here we come to the summary. The formal properties of predicates defined and illustrated in this unit constitute part of the information given in the Semantics dictionary and as a result are meant to represent part of what any native speaker knows about the meanings of such predicates. These formal properties, all involving two-place predicates, can be represented in the notation for meaning postulates. That's all of my presentation about predicates. Thank you for your kind attention, and I return to Tia to continue to the next presentation about derivation. Thank you, Tia. Time is yours.
Thank you, Bu Muriyah, for the explanation on Unit 18. Now, I will proceed for the next unit, which is derivation. So for this unit, we divide it into two parts. The first part will be delivered by me, Retrianti Prasetya, and then the next parts or the second parts will be delivered by Alfat. Now let's start with the definitions of derivation. So what exactly is derivation? As written in your PowerPoint, that the process of forming new words according to a very regular pattern on the basis of pre-existing words is what so known as derivation. So basically, derivations is a new word that is made or constructed based on previously existed words. As written in the example, there are two words started from happy, happiness, and unhappy. Happiness is a new word constructed from previous word happy combined with suffix ness. So it becomes happiness, and it changed the function of the word itself. Happy is an adjective, meanwhile happiness is a noun. And then unhappy. Here, change the position. Happy is positive and then unhappy is negative. The new words may be formed by combining existing words with meaningful units that are smaller than words. These units that are smaller than words is called as morphemes. Furthermore, morphemes is a minimal unit of word building that combines minimal unit of meaning with a minimal linguistic form that carries this meaning. So in short, morphemes is the smaller units in a word or the minimal unit of a word. So in short, word might consist of combination of morphemes. Okay, so please note that not all morphemes have meanings. There are also morphemes that has no meanings. Morphemes has a few kinds such as bound morpheme, root morpheme, and free morphemes. The class of morphemes in a language is not restricted to just the class of freestanding words. Here, prefixes and suffixes included in meaningless morphemes. Okay, and then in this slide as well, I will tell you that word may be made from prefixes combined with root, or root combined with suffixes, or even prefixes combined with root and combined with suffixes to be able to create new word. As the example here, we have dog. Dog here considered as morpheme. Why? Because dog is the smaller units. It is impossible for us to omit one word that construct the word dog when we are going to mean the same. It is impossible to say it do to certain dog or ok for certain dog. So here, dog is considered as morphemes. Another example here is unbreakable. Unbreakable is a new word, consists of prefix un, break, free morpheme, and able suffixes. So break and dog is a morpheme, meanwhile unbreakable is not. Unbreakable is new word created from combined morphemes. And then here we also have some examples like using suffixes ness and then become slowness, as in slowness, and then ice as in modernize, and then al as in recreational, and then fi as in glorify, and able as in drinkable. And then the last one as ans as in importance. Other than a word that constructed from the combination of morphemes, we also have word constructed from noun or two pre-existing words. This is called compound noun. So, what is compound noun? Compound noun is a derived word formed by combining two pre-existing words in a language. As in the example, there are bluebird, spaceship, babysit, bittersweet. And we also might remember the word breakfast. Those are the examples of new words constructed from a combination of pre-existed words that have their own meaning when they stand by themselves. But here, when we combine them, they have new meaning that is so different from the previous meaning. Like breakfast. Break has a meaning, like in broken. Fast has a meaning, as in walking fast. But when we combine break and fast, it's not becoming walking fast and then break. No, it means breakfast is a meal that is done in the morning. And so does bluebird. And then babysit. It consists of baby and sit. Baby is just a baby. Sit is an action of sitting. But it is impossible that the meaning is derived from those two. Babysit here means that you are taking care of the baby. Okay, so it is obvious that these two words, when they are combined, they have their own meanings. In compound noun, the words consist of root words without any prefix or suffix. As you can see, there is no prefix, there is no suffixes in the example. Next, we also have the process of derivation. The process of derivation is needed in order to produce a new word. This process contains of three big processes. The first one is morphological process, and then synthetic process, and then semantic process. The first process is a morphological process in which It is changing shape of an existing word by adding prefix or suffix to an existing root morpheme. And then we have synthetic process, which is the changing part of speech of a word, like from verb to noun. And then the last one, a semantic process in which it produces new sense. Here I provide you example of the process. The first one, morphological process of log that become laughter. Log add suffix ter by the morphological process. And then in synthetic process, it changed verb log into noun louder. And then in semantic process, it produced word denoting an act or an activity. Next, we have teach, that is later developed into teacher. In morphological process, add suffix er into teach, and then in synthetic process, it changed verb to noun. And then in semantic process, it produced word denoting an agent. And then we have red, that become redness. The morphological process is to add suffix ness. The synthetic process, it changed the adjective to noun. And then the semantic process, it produced word denoting a property. Okay, as mentioned earlier, in derivation we include morphological process. But we have to pay attention that there is what's so-called as zero derivation. So what is zero derivation? Zero derivation is derivation in which it doesn't include any morphological process. So there might only be semantic process and synthetic process. The characteristic of this derivation is that there is no change in the structure of the words, but the meaning is different. A root morpheme is converted from one part of speech to another without the addition of either a prefix or suffix to the root. If you remember the table earlier, the additional of prefix and suffix is the job of morphological process. Here, the example is between the cook and paint. Cook and paint both are verb indicating something to be done, like cooking and painting. Here, when we want to address someone who cooks, we will say it, he is a cook, not a cooker, because there is no such words in English addressed as cooker. So the picture there is the person who cook. A cook is cooking a cookie. Okay? And then next, for painter, we add suffix so that the paint become noun, the one who do the painting. And then the process of derivation can often be invisible because no morphological process is involved. Another example can be taken from the word open, in which that will be explained further on the next two slides. Here, what I want to point out is the difference between states and actions that it has in meaning, more likely a semantic difference. Just as derivation can sometimes involve both semantic and synthetic processes, as it happened in zero derivation, cases also occur that morphological and semantic process exists without an accompanying of synthetic process. It is indeed not an easy way to describe the differences in meaning between the derived words and their sources. So here, the semanticists invented a number of classificatory labels for the various kinds of derivation found in languages. There are three kinds of derivation that found in languages, which are inchoative, causative, and resultative. I will explain about inchoative and causative. So first of all, in inchoative form, it denotes that the beginning or coming into existence of some state. As written in the example there is a word dark is in adjective into darken, intransitive verb. The intransitive verb can be used as in the sentence, the sky darkened. It denotes the beginning of a state of darkness, just as the picture showed you. Light and then become dark. So it's getting darker and darker. It is obvious that inchoatives derived from suffixation of "-an. Yet, it is not the only device used. Zero derivations appears to be quite common, but not many, but not in every inchoatives. Okay, so zero derivations appears to be quite common with inchoatives, but not every inchoatives is zero derivations. Next, we have causative form. Causative form denotes an action which causes something to happen. As the example here, open as an intransitive verb and open as transitive verb. Here we are going to discuss a little deeper than the previous one in the word open. If you see the word, it is obvious that the structure are just like zero derivation in which there is no change in form, but there is a change in the function. The fact is, in English zero derivation, it is the commonest device for producing causative forms. Although causatives are also frequently formed by adding the suffix "an" to the non-causative root. As the example here, open. Let's put it in a sentence. For example, the door is opened. It's stating a fact. But when you say, can you please open the door? It means you want someone to do something. It means you want someone to open the door. Okay, it is a form of causative form in which one word has more than one function. And it is the commonest, it is in causative forms, the commonest device is the zero derivation, but not all as well, because frequently in causatives, they also formed by adding the suffix "an", just like the inchoative to the non-causative root. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you for listening to me, and now we will proceed to the next presentation, Alfat. Thank you.
Thanks, Dia, for the time you've given to me. I will continue your explanation about derivation. The next point is resultative. A resultative form denotes a state resulting from some actions. For example, ice is a frozen water. This crucible contains melted steel. The roof was thatched with dried grass. Frozen, melted, and dried are the resultative form corresponding to freeze, melt, and dry. The state of being frozen, melted, and dried are a result from the action of freezing, melting, and drying. The existence of gaps. Usually, there is at least one gap. In this case, there happens to be no inchoative form corresponding to the state denoting noble and causative in noble. We could use a phrase become noble to convey the inchoative meaning. Meaning by a gap is that, in some cases, a morphologically derived form with the indicative meaning, which could be created by means of an existing derivational process in the language, is simply not used. Next, we are going to the productivity of various derivational processes. A derivational process is completely productive if it can be used to produce an existing derived word from every appropriate source word. It is doubtful whether any derivational process is actually completely productive, but some are very productive and others hardly productive at all. Here are the three terms of derivational process. The first is a syntactic term, for example, change verb to noun, and the second is a morphological term, for example, add the suffix ly, and semantic term, for example, producing new sense is like adjunctive. It is necessary to do this because often the same morphological process can correlate with different semantic or syntactic processes. We will illustrate this in the next slide. The suffix ry or ery is associated with a number of different semantic classes of words. The most important of these can be labeled as A. Occupation or activity or behavior. For example, dentistry, forestry, gunnery, archery, and tomfoolery. And B. Physical location, for example, bakery and grocery. And C. Collection of objects, for example, cutlery, crockery, finery, and jewelry. And next kind of dictionary entries. The example below of the kind of partial dictionary entries that we envisage for derived form. Here large as a comparative of large, widen one here means intransitive verb as inchoative of wide, and widen two here as transitive verb causative of widen one as intransitive verb unpleasant negative of pleasant tigress feminizer of the tiger burns as a resultative of burn. Formulate partial dictionary entries is drawn from comparative, inchoative, causative, negative, feminizer, and resultant. Let's be a lot of partial dictionary entries. Terms like negative, inchoative, feminizer have a similar function to the other technical terms which may be used in dictionary entries, such as symmetric, transitive, reflexive, etc. Whereas this latter term describes sense properties of predicates. Terms like negative, imperative, and etc. describe complex sense relation between predicates. Thus, these terms are parallel to the technical semantic term hyponym and converse, which also describe sense relation between predicates. And just as the term symmetric, transitive, and etc. can be regarded as a shorthand for information spelled out in exact detail in a meaning postulates, so too, terms like causative, negative, and etc. stand for somewhat complex sense relation whose detail can be made explicit by meaning postulates. And next, to the point of suppletion. Suppletion is a process whereby in irregular and idiosyncratic cases, substitution of morphologically unrelated form is associated with the specific semantic and or syntactic processes normally accompanying a morphological process. Bad and worse is a cases of suppletions. Worse is clearly semantically related to they in exactly the same way. On the other hand, larger is related to large, but there is no morphological relationship between the two words. Mean there is no phonetic similarity between them. Next is the last discussion. Here is the time for me to give in the conclusion. Derivation emphasizes morphological, syntactic, and semantic components, and also the issues of productivity. We have drawn our illustration from a relatively small and relatively well understood set, concentrating on the notion imperative, causative, resultative, and comparative. There are many other derivational processes related pairs of words we have skimmed the surface of this topic. The semantic relationship between a source word and derived word can be shown in dictionary answers. Thank you. That's all from us. Bless we say. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.